Hello everybody, good morning and welcome to the United Stand. This is your latest Manchester United news as Manchester United receive a huge boost. Well, Manchester United fans and people who want Qatar to own Manchester United have received a huge boost from a rather unlikely source in UEFA, which is also a boost for Sir Jim as well, because what they're basically saying is that these rules around dual ownership may well be relaxed sooner than we think. So, look, technically, the Qatar bid isn't anything to do with PSG. I think many of us believe that, that there probably is very strong links with the same people who own PSG, and that Qatari bid has had to find a different way to, make itself not part of that. But even Sir Jim, with his Nice ownership, there is that same question there. So we'll go through that, of course. We'll also be talking about Spurs are saying that Harry Kane's not for sale, and they'd rather lose him for free. What does that mean for Manchester United in the summer? And also we've got Sabitzer back from injury as well. We'll talk about that. A few other bits I wanted to talk about as well. Frankie de Jong, Tammy Abraham. What's that I've wrote down there? Oh, Kvaratskhelia. I want to talk a little bit about him as well. So lots to get into on the show this morning. But before we get into all of that, you may well see the Boohoo Man scan the QR code next to me. I'm wearing my Boohoo Man hoodie as well. Boohoo Man Active. Get yourself an extra 10% off with the link in the video description or scan the QR code next to me. Boohoo Man is all about looking good and feeling great. And as we move into this spring, there's no better time to get yourself some brand new spring or active wear from their amazing Boohoo Man collection. And because Boohoo Man is sponsoring the show, it means it's time for some United trivia this morning. So this week we're seeing if you guys can guess which players have played for both Manchester United and Fulham, because we play them at the weekend. We considered doing Betis, but the only thing we could find was Patrick O'Connell, who played for United in 1914 and managed Real Betis in 1940. So I thought that might be a little bit hard. So who are the players that have played for both United and Fulham since the start of the Premier League? If you can give me three, I'd be very, very impressed. So get involved with the chat about that. And as always, Boohoo Man have given United Stand a discount for this video by scanning the QR code or clicking the link in the description and using the code GOALBRIDGE. You can get an extra 10% off at Boohoo Man, excluding certain sale items. So thank you very much to Boohoo Man for that. Some interesting answers coming straight away. We'll go to the Berbatov, exactly, Kevin. That's one. Sahar is definitely another one. Van der Sar is another one. Smalling is another one as well. Andreas Pereira. I tell you what, you lot, you're on fire this morning. Yeah. I mean, one that you haven't seen, I can give you a few others as well. Kieran Richardson, Fosu Mensah, Tunnicliffe, Paul Parker. I never would have got that. But the one I never would have got, link between Fulham and Dan James is another one as well. Andy Cole, which I almost feel like I need to check Wikipedia for Andy Cole. Apparently Andy Cole has a connection between Man United and Fulham. So there we go. But thank you very much for that. Right, let's fly straight into this this morning. We are talking a big UEFA boost for Manchester United. Where is it coming from? Well, it's coming from the president of UEFA. I read this in the Times this morning. You may have seen it yourself. But here we go. UEFA is considering allowing... let me pop it up on the screen for you. UEFA is considering allowing clubs with the same owner to play in the Champions League simultaneously, a move that would have significant ramifications for the takeover of Manchester United. Of course it would. Of course it would have a huge ramifications. I mean, this has been something that weirdly, and we've spoken about this many a time, weirdly, this has been something that has been levelled at the Qatar bid for Manchester United more than it's been levelled at the Sir Jim Ratcliffe bid for Manchester United. Because let's not forget, Sir Jim Ratcliffe does actually have an ownership of Lille, who... Lille, is it Lille? No, it's Nice. And therefore, if we're being absolutely honest, there is a scenario there where that they could both play in the same tournament as well. So it's a little bit unfair how it gets levelled at Qatar, but also let's not forget PSG is Qatari owned. The Qatar bid from Al Thani is Qatari based. 2 + 2 is 4, or 2 + 2 is Matic, as Ricky would say. So I think that actually I need to have a chat. I need to have a face-to-face with Ricky, actually. What's this? We were better off with McTominay than Casemiro. I mean, look, Ricky's king of the hot takes, but I think there needs to be a chat there. There does. There definitely does. But that's for another day. Welcome to the Members Club, John. But yeah, look, Manchester United, PSG could be playing in the Champions League next year. How would that work? So this is a significant update. Zero Connection says, I could accept the refereeing body decision to punish teams that over-abuse the appeal process, but it seems deeply unfair that a team is punished for a single appeal, says Zero Connection. Yeah, people still not happy about this stuff, are they? But big up everyone this morning, says RJ. Yeah, look, we're active this morning. And who does Ricky think he is, says Corey. Oh, I tell you what, there's going to be a face-off. Goldbridge and Ricky. Enough is enough. You can't go in on Casemiro for McTominay. I'm not having that. I'll take the Bruno, the Rashford stuff, even though I disagree, but that's too far. Casemiro's too far. We'll be having words, I'm sure. You never know. He'll probably wrap me up in some sort of argument that he's right. You know, that's Ricky's I nearly said he's an evil genius. He's not evil. He's a tactical. He has his beliefs. Anyway, look, let's get on with what we're talking about here. So this is from the article in the Times. UEFA is considering allowing clubs with the same owner to play in the Champions League simultaneously, a move that could have significant ramifications for the takeover of Manchester United. You can see that on the screen now. But there's more than that. There's more than that. There's much more. There's more. There's much more than that. The key quote for me was this. Julia Roberts came to England and snubbed me for Manchester United, even though they were crap. No, that's from Pep, sitting himself down because his club's insignificant. That's just a bit of banter. This is from the UEFA regulations. UEFA President Seferon says, we have to speak about these regulations and see what to do about it. There is more and more interest in multi-club ownership. So look, I think UEFA are waking up to the fact that 1 minute, let me just get the door. I'm waking up here. Scooby-Doo, I know what that is. I'm glad I answered the door for that. I don't know why I'm showing it to you. You lot won't know what it is. But let's just say, no, it's irrelevant. It's relevant. Anyway, what's not irrelevant is that Alexander Seferon of the UEFA has said that this regulation could be relaxed in relation to ownership of Manchester United and other clubs who are looking for it. It's Postman Pep. He was not happy. He was crying at the doorstep with a picture of Julia Roberts, and I just basically said, go, get out. But no, let me read this. This is serious. So Seferon's the president of UEFA, and obviously the two main offers for Manchester United have come from owners who have relationships with clubs in France. Top flight. Nice for Sir Jim, PSG for obviously Qatar, and obviously there is a link with Al Thani. So basically what he said is, we're not thinking about the Manchester United bid. This is from Seferon. We're not just thinking about the Manchester United bid. That's not what we're thinking about. We've had 5 or 6 owners of clubs who want to buy another club. So we have to see what to do. So this is interesting because it's, everyone's going to focus on Man United and say, oh, UEFA are changing the rules for Manchester United so that PSG owners can own Manchester United. But apparently there's a lot of other clubs that want to do this. Now, I have a personal opinion on this that might go against the boat, but let me just say, let me get through this. The options are that it stays like that it is, or that we allow them to play in the same competition. And we're not sure yet, but we have to speak about these regulations and see what to do about it. There's more and more interest in multi-club ownership. We shouldn't just say no for the investments for multi-club ownership, but we have to see what kind of rules we set in case, because the rules have to be strict. He goes on to say, from one point of view, it's true. If you have the owner of 2 clubs and they play in the same competition, you could say to one club to lose to the other one and make sure they win. But he said, but at the end of the day, you've got fans of both clubs that won't want that to happen. You've got coaches of both clubs that won't want that to happen. You've got football players of clubs that won't want that to happen. So how likely is it it's going to happen? And I think what he means by that is if we played PSG and they beat us, 4-0, and our players played crap, I think as fans we'd be going, what's going on there? The owners have done that. Then you've got the players that you've got to convince to do that. Do you think you know how the United dressing room leaks? Do you think we're not going to get an article in the Manchester Evening News saying we were told to lose? I think it's quite intelligent thinking from Seferon and from UEFA, if I'm being absolutely honest, because I don't think that there is any reason not to have dual ownership. I think in the same league, you've got a problem. I think that's a bit too far, but I don't see a problem with somebody owning Borussia Dortmund and Chelsea. I don't see a problem because at the end of the day, how often do you play each other? And if you do play each other and you decide to manipulate the result, there's too many people involved that would come out, and then you'd face all sorts of charges. It wouldn't be worth it. But that's my personal opinion. My actual personal opinion is, and I don't know, I mean, let's just do a poll on this. It's an interesting one to do. Should there be dual ownership? So let's whack that in there. Lots to get through this morning. We've got updates on Sabitzer, Harry Kane, and a lot of other things, but this is quite big breaking news. So UEFA are saying that they're looking at relaxing the rules around dual ownership. Now, I will say, in relation to sporting integrity, I would rather every club was owned individually. I really would. I don't even like the idea that Qatar could own Man United, PSG, Napoli. Because where does it stop? You own a club in every league. I don't like that. I think sporting merits, you should have individual ownerships for all clubs. However, I think that's a fantasy. I think it's a fantasy because there's so much money in football now, and money is people invest in this, in that, in this, in that. What I would rather do is that you can have a percentage ownership in each one. But look, I'm just personally not all for it, but I wouldn't say I'm adamantly against it. I just, it's not even PSG and Man United being owned by the same people. It's PSG, Man United, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Napoli. One from each of the big leagues. That becomes a little bit fragmented and dilute to me. And Stephen says I don't like it because of the corruption angle. I think you can dismiss the corruption angle quite easily, because I just don't think you can. As I said, if Man United play PSG and we lose 4-0 and we play terribly, you've got to get all the players, the manager, the coaching staff, everybody to keep quiet about the fact that you've let PSG win. And then you've got, the United stands, Manchester Evening, every Man United fans losing it publicly, saying we've thrown that game because we've got different owners, the same owners. So I don't think that is a major concern. But at the end of the day, in relation to the ownership of Manchester United, I've got to say it's probably a boost in relation to the ownership of Manchester United, because if UEFA do relax these rules, Qatar can do what they want to do. I mean, look, you cannot. I nearly said something quite interesting there. I said, well, does this bring Saudi Arabia into the bidding war? Because they can say, well, we can own Newcastle and Man United. That cannot happen. I think that's you've got to draw the line there. You can't have two clubs in the same league owned by the same people. That for me causes a huge problem, and it potentially causes a problem in the Champions League, to be fair, because imagine if Man United and Newcastle had the same ownership, and Newcastle are playing, we're top of the league, and Newcastle are firmly third, and they're never going to drop out the top four, and Man United are playing, Arsenal away on the last game of the season, and we're playing. Sorry, Man United playing Newcastle. You know what I mean? Like if we needed Newcastle to let us win, they could easily let us win. But also, if we needed Newcastle to let Arsenal win to screw City over or something, you can manipulate scores, and potentially that could happen in the Champions League. So I'm still not. It's not when you play each other; it's the damage you can do to rivals if you've got an ally. Like I say, there's a lot of things you could do. If PSG need to win the Champions League, but they're scared of Real Madrid, and we've lost the first leg to Real Madrid 3-0, and then we're at the Bernabeu, we start putting some nasty tackles in to try and injure their players for the final. That it benefits PSG. So it's a tough one. It's a tough one, but look, UEFA are looking at it. I'm sure Leipzig and Salzburg were even in the same Champions League group, both owned by Red Bull, says Ross. And morning, mate. Hope you're well, says Mikhail Roach. Hope you are as well. But look, it's interesting. Should there be dual ownership? Yes, 44%. No, 56%. So I'm quite encouraged by our community there, because I think that it would benefit Manchester United for Qatar to be able to own PSG and Man United. It would benefit Sir Jim to be able to own Nice and Manchester United. But I think, over half of you actually aren't comfortable with that. So I would applaud you with that. Because it's not just about we want Qatar, oil is up, or we want Sir Jim. Actually, I think morally, United, not just United fans, football fans, we can look beyond what's beneficial for Manchester United and say, I personally don't think it is good for football to have, the best team. Or not, it's not even that. Imagine the same owners own Arsenal, Dortmund, Juventus, Sevilla. I don't like that. I don't like that. And I agree with Joe Tommy. I personally think that the ownership of Manchester United, if it is bought by Al-Thani, I think PSG becomes a minor club in their mindset. I don't see what the future of PSG is if you own Manchester United. I don't. And I'm not being disrespectful to PSG, but I think the glamour of PSG was always the fact that they had major wealth. As soon as Man United are major wealthy, and Liverpool are major wealthy, and Man City are major wealthy, which they are already, and, you've already got dominant major wealthy clubs like Bayern in Germany and Real Madrid in Spain. What does that mean for PSG? You've lost the advantage, haven't you? So I don't know what the future is for PSG, but I tell you what, if I had ownership of PSG and Man United, I'd be pushing all my good players to Manchester United. I don't know whether they'll get sold, Liam, but it'll be interesting to see. But it's an interesting update on this Wednesday morning that UEFA President Seferon has been speaking about multi-club ownership and how they're considering allowing it to happen, which means you could have a scenario where Saudi Arabia own Newcastle and then they decide to buy Juventus. Maybe they'll buy everybody who wears black and white. Man City are already doing it with some clubs. I wouldn't be surprised if they then went and bought. I mean, it could be quite interesting, actually. You know what? Imagine if Abu Dhabi, who owned Man City, went and bought Dortmund. I mean, that would shake up the Bundesliga. I mean, it's not all bad. It's not all bad. I mean, in relation to other... I mean, we don't need it in the Premier League, but in relation to other leagues, it could really mix things up. If you look at the French league, I mean, it's probably never going to be decent. But the German league, imagine if a rich owner like Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi or Qatar bought a club that wasn't Bayern Munich in the Bundesliga, or bought a club in La Liga that wasn't Real Madrid or Barcelona. It could make it quite interesting, but we'll see. Julia Robertson says Parab. I mean, this is just a bit of banter and it was banter from Pep, to be fair. So Julia Roberts, who's his idol, Pretty Woman, came to England a few years ago in the period when Man United were not good. And that Man City were the better side, but she came to Manchester United. She didn't come to see us. Even if I win the Champions League, I cannot make up for Julia Roberts not wanting to come to see us. I mean, that's a joke from Pep, but it's true. It's true. You can have all your trophies, you can have all your winning records, you can have all your good football, but you'll still not be a credible football club that people really know anything about. It's going to take years, Pep, and you'll never, ever, ever have that situation. Even Julia Roberts has sat you down, but... I mean, that's the problem that Man City have got. Is it a problem? They're still winning. They're still smashing teams. They're still winning titles. But ultimately, nobody really knows who they are or even takes that much interest in them. It's I've always said that for years. It's a problem for City. But this ain't the City stand. This is the United stand. We've had a super chat coming in from Parth. He says, classic F1 thingy, Mark. Got me thinking of Bottas and Hamilton, 2017 to 21, says Parth. Yeah. If you like F1... If you like Formula One, then basically dual ownership, look at Formula One, because this happens a lot. You have two races for one car gets more preferential treatment, and the second driver can hold up the other drivers, can do all sorts of stuff to make it easier for the one that's going to win the race. But look, we'll see what happens. James Street, welcome to Members Club. You're very, very welcome, fella. Right, a bit of news as well. Sabitzer is going to be back. He's I don't know whether he's going to be back for Man United, though, so hold up on that. But he has been called up to the Austrian squad. Not the Australian squad. That would be absolutely stunning, considering he is Austrian. But he's been called up by Ralf Rangnick for the Austrian squad, which obviously meets up on Monday. Which is less than a week away. So the fact that Sabitzer has been called up to the Austrian squad would suggest he's not got a serious injury, which is an injury boost for Manchester United. Now, we don't know whether he'll play tomorrow. I don't know whether he's even flown out to Spain tomorrow, and we don't know whether he'll be involved with Fulham at the weekend. But what it does mean is that whatever news Austria have received from Manchester United, it's positive news around Sabitzer that he'll be able to link up with them. So he might not be back tomorrow night or for the Fulham game. I'd expect him to be back for the Fulham game, but whatever injury Sabitzer's got, thankfully, it's not a long-term one. Because with Ten Hag, we never bloody know. We don't know whether they've stubbed their toe or they've broken their ankle, but in the Sabitzer case, it looks like it's something minor. And we could really do with Sabitzer over the next 2 games. Maybe not tomorrow because we've got Casemiro, but certainly for the Fulham game. I'd like to see him get a few minutes tomorrow. Anthony wasn't in training this morning, says Ronald. Mikael Roach is gifted as a membership. I mean, look, I'm a big fan of Anthony. I'll be ridiculously patient with Anthony, as you know, but I tell you what, he does pick up a lot of injuries, so I hope there's not anything in that. Apparently Sabitzer is training this morning as well, which is good news. Martial will be training, Joe. The issue with Martial is not the fact that he's injured. He is back in training. He's been training with the first team for a couple of weeks. It's more the issue of Ten Hag, whether he wants to throw him in. And it's interesting because I said this last week. I said, I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see Martial until after the international break, because maybe Ten Hag just wants to give him 5 weeks training with the first team and see if he, has a relapse, because every time he comes back this season, he has a relapse. So I think Ten Hag this time is just really reluctant to just bring Martial back in the first team and then he gets injured again. So maybe he's just going to be like, well, look, if you're going to get injured, you may as well get injured training rather than me bringing you back and everyone facing a big disappointment. But Martial is training. So at some point, if he stays fit in training, Ten Hag is going to bring him back. It could be tomorrow, it could be on Sunday, but he's not training. He's been training for a while. Imagine we're in a title race with Qatar as owners and PSG loan as Mbappe in January for 100k a week to help us win the title. Is that fair? Well, Vicky, give yourself a clap. I'm just imagining Vicky going, but give yourself a clap. It's a great point. It's another angle of dual ownership. Watford got promoted by doing this, didn't they? Who did Watford? Watford had dual ownership. Watford did something with an Italian club, didn't they? They just loaned in a load of Italian players and got promoted from it a few years ago. What's stopping, if Man United are owned by the same people who own PSG, what's stopping them if PSG have won the title and they want Man United to win the title and they loan in 2 or 3 players? It takes the sporting merit out of it, I think, a little bit. But let's not pretend that there's not little relationships going on between clubs already. I mean, look, Spurs aren't owned by Real Madrid, but they have a very good relationship with them. Southampton and Liverpool for years had a good relationship. ACD, Red Devil, welcome to the Members Club. Thank you very much. But look, nothing ever lasts forever, and you've got to evolve. I think we'd all agree with that. You have got to evolve. But I'm not totally comfortable with it, really. I don't. Everybody in the chat sort of going, well, what about New York and Man City or Man United and and Royal Antwerp? Even when you play Football Manager, you can have a little relationship with clubs. You can do, but I think it's a very big it's a big leap to go from Man United and Royal Antwerp and Man City and the New York team to Man City and Dortmund and Man United and PSG. That's when it becomes. I think the best way of explaining it is if you wanted to rank the top 50 teams in Europe, I don't think any of those should have dual ownership. But how do you set the barriers for that? You probably can't set it. Anyway, so Sabitzer looks like he's going to be back very, very soon. We've also got an update on Harry Kane this morning. So Sky are saying that Spurs are very reluctant to sell Harry Kane this summer and would actually value him so much that they would rather keep him for another year and lose him for free. I spoke about this. I played the game. I spoke about this a couple of days ago, and I'm going to stand by it. The reality is that if we go for Harry Kane this summer, and there's no problem with going with Harry Kane this summer, if we do go for Harry Kane this summer, then it will take all summer. They don't want to sell him. Kane will have to force the move, and they will just dig in and go, we want 110 million. I mean, I've even heard 150 million. I mean, they're having a bloody laugh. I mean, he is a world-class striker, though. I mean, I read something this morning. Somebody was saying that Harry Kane's better than Erling Haaland. You're never going to get anywhere with that on a morning after Haaland scored goals in the Champions League. But in a way, it's a hot take. In a way, it's a clever opinion. There are aspects to Harry Kane's game that are better than Erling Haaland's. Erling Haaland's playing in a Man City side that basically feeds him. Harry Kane's playing in a Spurs side where it's dull and slow. If you put Haaland in a Spurs side, I don't think he'd score goals. I don't, because he can't link the play up like Kane does. He's not that sort of player. And where's the final service? So you put Harry Kane in a Man City side, I think he'd still score goals. So who's the better striker? Look, everyone and his dog's going to say Haaland's better than Kane. I get that, but actually, sometimes football has a deeper level, and if you put Harry Kane up front for Man City, I still think he'd score loads of goals. Haaland in a Spurs side, I think he struggles because where they don't play to his strengths, Man City do. So Harry Kane is a very, very good player, and if Spurs said we want 150 million, you could see why. But ultimately, I think it helps United if they know that Harry Kane's not leaving Spurs. I think if we know that Spurs aren't going to sell Kane easily, we move away because we need a striker this summer. And if we know that Harry Kane and Spurs are going to make it very difficult for us, as I said a couple of days ago, we need to go on tour with our striker. We can't be waiting till the end of August after 4 or 5 games signing Harry Kane. He's had no pre-season with us. Maybe we've lost a couple again. We need a striker in the summer. And if Harry Kane isn't going to be that or that easy, we just move on. Yazza says, hi Mark, AFTV saying that Casemiro's challenge was a red card and Man United should stop moaning, and a few weeks Arsenal got apology by the Prem. I ain't got no interest in them because I actually want Arsenal to win the league, and there's a lot of decent Arsenal fans out there. I mean, maybe that's the way people make content now. They try and goad people into little, beefs and stuff because that's the only way they can do it. We don't do that on here. I want Arsenal to win the league. I think they've been badly treated by VAR, obviously, and they got an apology. I think we've been badly treated by it. Everyone's entitled to their opinion about it, but I'm not getting into silly little beefs and stuff. It's so 2017, and I'm not. To be honest with you, look, if people like that whole let's have a beef with Liverpool fans, let's have a beef with City fans, let's have a beef with Arsenal fans, that's absolutely fine, but you preclude yourself from intelligent football conversation because you become tinted, and you basically dislike everything Arsenal and everything Liverpool and everything like that, and you can't be pragmatic. I think Arsenal have been victim of some really bad decisions. Chelsea at the weekend, we've had it happen to us, so I'm not interested in arguing with Arsenal or Chelsea fans about what's a red card or anything else, because that's when the officials and the Premier League win. Collectively as fans, we should all be saying enough is enough. As soon as we start arguing with each other, we're arguing with the wrong people. We should be arguing with the officials. So I felt that the weekend was appalling. It's getting forgotten about, which is a shame. Andre Mariner will be refereeing at the weekend. That is a disgrace, an absolute disgrace. Absolute incompetence from a referee at the weekend from Andre Mariner and Anthony Taylor. They'll both be refereeing at the weekend because it's swept under the carpet. What does it do to me to argue with some Pratt fans about rivalry? It doesn't. We need a third option beside Osman and Kane, as both will be hard to get. We will have, Nicholas, and I agree with you on that one. I completely agree, Nicholas. I mean, at the moment, it is Kane versus Osman. And, I think we should do a video on that. It'd be quite interesting. But what's beyond that? Because I've always been an advocate of, I would love it if Erik ten Hag bought a player from Germany for 40 million who's 22 and goes, this is the player who's going to be the next best thing, or South America. We've got to have that in our locker. I think at United, since Sir Alex Ferguson retired, we've become locked in on the same type of players. Let's go and get this player from Napoli or Spurs. How's about we start developing our own? I think Ten Hag is capable of setting up those scouting networks where we bring in the next big thing. And I'd love us to do that. So I agree with you, Nicholas. And having a big medical exam tomorrow, and I'm really nervous about it. Any advice how to handle the pressure and just give one last push? Wish me luck, says Shaddy. Are you doing an exam or you're having a medical examination? Because in my mind, I can see you in a gown, panicking about where the probe's about to go. But is it a medical exam or is it in a medical examination? Because if you're preparing for an examination, you better relax. The best thing to do is relax. You don't want to be tense. If you're preparing for an exam, well, the thing I always do, whether it's a driving test or anything else, or a football match or anything, is don't let the nerves defeat you. Imagine that this is a second chance because you've bottled it once already. A lot of people can fail because of nerves. So I always use the mindset of, I've already failed and this is my second chance, even though it's reverse psychology. Imagine you've failed your exam and you'd be desperate to have another chance. Put yourself in that mindset in reality. I'm not going to miss this chance. Determination over fear. Anyway, let's move on. Yeah, look, Frankie de Jong, it sort of falls into that category, doesn't it? There's been a lot of reports coming out from Spain that they're so happy that they didn't sell him last summer, that he's been a revelation for them, which he has, and they're just so grateful that they didn't sell him when it looked like that they might. What does that mean for Manchester United in the summer? What does that mean if Barcelona are bigging up Frankie de Jong? Does that mean that he's no longer available? I think that Frankie de Jong is the perfect midfielder for Manchester United to sign to play with Casemiro. I think he's absolutely perfect for us. But how easy that deal is going to be or not, I don't know. And I think it's very similar to the Harry Kane deal. Look, if you want to sign Harry Kane, or Ten Hag wants to sign Harry Kane, we've got to learn from last summer. What we can't do is put ourselves in a situation which is inevitable. Spurs are difficult to deal with. They probably don't want to sell. They'll want ridiculous money. Harry Kane's probably not going to hand in a transfer request because he doesn't want to upset the club that he's been at since he was a kid. It's a really long deal that's going to run through till late August. We can't be doing that. We also can't do what we did last summer with Frankie de Jong. If it starts off in May, Barcelona are playing silly beggars again, pulling levers, and Frankie de Jong's like, I want to stay, we walk away. We walk away from the deal. And ultimately, you know what? If we've got Qatari ownership and we've got a load of money and we buy somebody else, and then in August Barcelona go and de Jong go, I want to leave, then you just probably do it. You know, as a bonus signing, you probably do it. But it can't be our summer. We can't be fixated on this deal. If it's like last summer, I think we've got to just leave it, because I think it's so important when you've got a coach like Erik Ten Hag, who clearly can take a player, can do what Klopp can do. He can take a good player and make them a great player. He can take a great player and make them world class. Ten Hag's proven that. You know, it's very clear with so many players how much they've improved. You can't not be taking these players on pre-season. You can't be bringing these players in 3 or 4 games in. You know, we want to hit the ground running this season. Look at the runs we've been on. We want to be hitting that first game of the Premier League season knowing what our best team is, because it's been playing together for a few weeks. There's no Euros, there's no World Cup. Everyone will be going on that tour. We want to be ready to go. Mark, I think Victor Osimhen would cost closer to 150 because Napoli's success and the way they value their players and unwillingness to sell. Hunter, if Harry Kane's 100 and Osimhen's 150, it's a bargain to get us Osimhen. And people will go, what are you talking about? It's £50 million more. Victor Osimhen's in his early 20s. Harry Kane is 30. If you pay £150 million for someone in their early 20s and you pay £100 million for somebody who's 30, the one in their 20s is going to play a lot longer. You know, how valuable is a striker that can score you 20 Premier League goals a season? They've got to be worth 30, 40, 50 million a season. Well, Osimhen only needs to play 2.5 seasons more than Kane, and he's worth it. And obviously you've got resale value, etc. So look, I don't think we can. I think it's a real mistake to compare the price of Osimhen and Kane and go, let's go for the cheaper option, because there are definite parameters there that skew the price, none more so than age. What's your opinion on Moani at Frankfurt as a young, cheaper option up front, says PQ? Well, look, there's plenty of options up there. I don't really watch Bundesliga, so I can't pretend that I do. But that there's plenty of options out there. And I've got to be honest, I mean, I know some of you are absolutely... I do worry about some of you. You know, you need to get out. You need to do other things. I think your football knowledge is almost too anal at times in relation to how deep you go. They're not 2 words I thought I'd ever use together. But, you know, deep knowledge of football is amazing. Like, it's fantastic. I still think... Look, at the end of the day, maybe that is fantastic. But, you know, we're talking about football. The reality is, some of you just know loads. You'll know a CDM who's just made his debut in the Austrian league. It's amazing. But I think that the reality is, if you want to do that, that's great. And it makes you very learned and knowledgeable about the wider game. But ultimately, it's not your job to do that. It's not my job to do that. I ain't got the time to do that. I've got 1,000,001 things to do, as I'm sure many of you have. But the club have got the time to do that, and that's what Manchester United should be doing. We should be looking at, as I said before, I'd be massively excited if we went and bought a striker from the Bundesliga that I never heard of, because I'd be like, I trust Ten Hag. I loved it the day that we bought Eric Bailly. I mean, I know it didn't work out, but I was like, I didn't know much about Eric Bailly, and we bought him from Villarreal, and it happened really quickly, and it was like, ooh, those sort of signings are fantastic. I'd love to see us do more of those. And look, the way football works, Osimhen and Harry Kane are absolutely fantastic, but don't tell me in the next 2 years there's not going to be a striker that's as good as those two that no one's even talking about at the moment. Like, it's football. That's how it works. There are players that are going to come through in the next 2 or 3 years. Look, I'd love Ferguson from Brighton. Who knows what ceiling he's got, but I'd love that. Mark, if we get the Qatari ownership, we could possibly get Donnarumma on a cheaper deal. Young, brilliant goalkeeper. He would be perfect as Ethan Cooper. Yeah. There's a lot of options out there. Press conference time today is 5:45 UK time, so we'll be live around 6 o'clock tonight for the press conference, which works out quite well because I'm going to watch Liverpool get knocked out of the Champions League on That's Football at 8 o'clock tonight, so we'll do that there. Gravenberch, if we can't get Frankie de Jong, I do think there's a player in Gravenberch, and I do think there's a lot of potential in Gravenberch, and I do think that Ten Hag would bring it out of him, so I would like that type of a player. In fact, a lot of people talk about what would be a good player to bring in because Casemiro's missing a lot of games. I think Gravenberch can do that role. I know he's more advanced, but I think he can do that role in a 2. We play with a 1 holder with Casemiro. There's nothing wrong with playing with a 2. We tried to do it with Fred and Casemiro when Casemiro was suspended last time, and we may well do it again. But I think Gravenberch would be interesting. I just don't know how easy it would be to do with Bayern. I'm relatively new subscriber, Seaton, and I don't always agree with you, but I always enjoy your shows. Well, you've just hit the nail on the head of what the United stand is, mate. You're not meant to agree. I totally agree, Mark. Just wanted to point that out because they have a history of being hard to get players from Koulibaly. Oh, no, Hunter. There ain't no doubt about it that Napoli are brilliant in relation to transfers because they don't need to sell. They're not desperate to sell. But no, you make a good point. It won't be easy to do a deal with them. I think the fact that Osimhen wants to go should help, and I think the fact that Osimhen has to go should help because he's a striker that needs to play in a different league. He's conquered Serie A, especially if they win it. You know, some people think that if Napoli win the league, which they will, and they win the Champions League, which they could, that makes it more likely that Osimhen stays. I actually think in another way it makes it more likely that he leaves, because what about the mentality that there's so much that I want to do in my career? I've played in France, I've played in Italy, you know, I've won the league in Italy, I've won the Champions League with Napoli. You know, I'm not in love with Napoli. I don't want to stay here for the rest of my career. I'd like to go and try something else now. So, you know, just remember yesterday, just want a big shout out to the members. We did do a poll yesterday that will resonate in history, I think. I'm probably over egging the pudding a little bit, but we did a poll yesterday about the ownership model for Manchester United and who do we want as next United owners. So we did it on the members section because if you're a member of the United Stand, welcome to the TUS Army. You know, only those members could vote on the poll. I just had another look at it because I knew there'd be more votes. So yesterday there was about 1,000 votes. It's gone up considerably. 93% of you Altani, 6% Sir Jim. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I just thought it would be worth just going back just for a moment, just to reiterate that that can't be botted. It's not a Daily Mail poll where Liverpool fans can vote or anything like that. It's obviously it's the United Stand community, which is very global, and we embrace that. But 93% want Altani over Sir Jim, which is, you know, I find that surprising. But there you go. You can't argue with democracy, can you? I mean, we won't have any say in it, but it just shows you what United fans think in general. I personally think the general fan base, I accept that, you know, we're quite a global fan base. I do think if you polled match-going fans, it would still be majority Qatar, maybe lower, maybe around 75%, but it's still, I just think it's mythical that, you know, people think that match-going fans are just We want local. We want local. I think match-going fans are educated like every other Man United fan, and you know, the stadium needs 2 billion spending. I mean, in honesty, the match-going fans appreciate how much the stadium needs spending on it more than most, because they're there. They're walking around with piss on their shoes, you know, looking at the stadium rust, you know, water dripping down. They know the state of Old Trafford, and also those fans go away a lot, so they'll see the facilities that Spurs and even Brighton have got compared to Manchester United. So I think there's a very realistic element of this fan base across match-going fans and everybody else, which is the way it should be, because everybody should be singing off the same hymn sheet, really, in the sense that the club needs £1 billion spending on it on infrastructure. It needs £1 billion spending on it on transfers over the next few years, and it needs probably £2 billion spending on it on a stadium. That's £4 billion, and you've got to spend 5 to buy it. So who's got the money to spend 5 to buy it and 4 to get it back again? And everybody knows that needs to happen. It's not about buying Man United and then having no money left. It's about buying Man United and having another 4 billion to make it great again. And that is what most fans know is needed. The money is not there once you've bought the club to make it great again. There needs to be a few £1 billion of investment that cannot come from debt. Therefore, the logical answer is wealth. Great show as always. There must be development alternatives if we fail to get Frankie de Jong. Zubimendi at Sociedad can play DM or CM. Oh, mate, if we don't get Osimhen and Kane, we'll get a striker. If we don't get de Jong, we'll get a midfielder. There are options out there. Of course there are. Kvaratskhelia. A lot of people have mentioned Kvaratskhelia at Napoli, and what are my thoughts on him? I think he's a fantastic footballer. There's been many talk of him being the next Maradona. Maradona for me is the greatest player I've ever seen, and I only saw the back end of his career. I think he was an absolute genius, a tormented genius. Obviously, there's no doubt about that, but an absolute genius. And I would love to see Manchester United bring in a player of that quality, but obviously the Maradona thing is because Maradona won the league with Napoli, and Kvaratskhelia about to do it. I don't think Man United have got a chance for him. I've left him towards the end of the show purposely. I don't think we've got a chance of getting him. I've never heard us be linked to him. He is going to make a move, and he is going to be a great player. He's going to make a movie. He's going to be a great player. There's no doubt about that. But I don't see that being a Man United signing. However, what I would say is, depending on the model of ownership, look, if you're going down Sainsbury's with a fiver in your pocket, you're probably getting a meal deal or something like that for your lunch. If your mate comes along and grabs that fiver, rips it up and says, there's my contactless card, spend what you like, you're probably not going to go to Sainsbury's anymore. You're probably going to go somewhere else and treat yourself, pub lunch, few pints, spend a lot more. So we have to always factor that in. Ten Hag probably has got a plan, and it involves a very strict amount of money. But as soon as we get the ownership, and if we get a different type of ownership, that narrow vision will become bigger. And maybe a Leao or a Kvaratskhelia, maybe they do come into the equation then. Maybe Ten Hag is like, I've got these players and I know I'm going to have to work with them, and I'd like to add 2 or 3. And that's just the way it's going to be. And then suddenly he's got all this money and he's like, well, I'd like to add 4 or 5 and get rid of a couple of these players that I thought I'd have to keep. We don't know how it's going to work. And I can't chuck names at you because it's not fair. But what if Ten Hag was like, well, next season I expect to be using Jadon Sancho, and I think he will 100%. We get Super Wealth come in and he goes, actually, Sancho's not really the player for me. I'd like to be moving him out and I'd like to bring someone in. And the owners go, let's do it. And that's unfair on Sancho because I don't think that's going to happen. I could have said it about Delot. I could say it about De Gea. I could say it about Varane. I could say it about Rashford. It doesn't matter. The players are relevant. What I'm saying is there's many managers out there that are working to a limit where they've got players that they can make do with and, they can do well with. But ideally, if they had the keys to the kingdom, they'd probably remove them. If that happens, then you don't know what's possible. But at the moment, I don't see Kvaratskhelia. There's always one, isn't there? Funky says Sancho is class. I mean, mate, if I can't do hypotheticals, it's going to kill most of the channel. It's an example. And that's why I said it could be Delo or it could be anyone else. No one's saying that Ten Hag wants to get rid of those players, and I would never know. What I'm saying is he's probably expecting to use a squad next year, but if he suddenly had a load of money, he might actually say, can we sell them and them as well because I want a replacement? We've never boxed in that ring, if you know what I mean, where we can do that sort of thing. Raza, thank you very much and welcome to the Members Club. Sorry, Funky, don't worry about it. I've started something about Sancho I didn't mean to start now. There is a watch along tonight. I'm going to watch Liverpool get kicked out by Real Madrid. I mean, we've got to take every little thing we can at the moment after they beat us. But we're on at 6 o'clock tonight because we've got the Ten Hag press conference, which I think will be very interesting in relation to Martial and everybody else. Don't forget, we are sponsored by... who was sponsored by? Oh, Boohoo Man, I'm wearing it. What are you talking about? Of course you know what you're sponsored by. We're sponsored by Boohoo Man. Get 10% off with the code Goldbridge. The link is in the video description, or you can scan the QR code next to me. I'm wearing my favourite. I love this hoodie. It's got like a fleece lining, so it just keeps me lovely and warm. And it was frosty last night. It was frosty where I live. 69% of you do not want dual ownership. UEFA are talking about dual ownership, which would allow people like PSG to buy Manchester United if they wanted to, or Dortmund to be bought by Man City, whatever, you know. Which I mentioned Dortmund and Man City because I actually think that's the sort of thing that would happen. A lot of you are against it, but we'll see what happens with it. I'll speak to you all a little bit later. Smash the like on the video. Don't forget to subscribe. Loved the show this morning. Lots of good stuff to get involved in and brilliant chat as usual. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks to the new members and big shout out to the mods as always. Have a great day. Don't have a great day. Don't have a good day. Have a great day. I'll speak to you in a bit.